The cardboard box slipped from the single father's hands, scattering years of carefully organized engineering notes across the polished office floor. Every employee froze. The CEO folded her arms, convinced he would apologize, pick everything up, and obey. Instead, the quiet man calmly gathered only one faded photograph of his little daughter, closed the empty box, placed his company badge on the reception desk, and walked toward the exit without looking back. No one realized that within a few hours, the decision everyone celebrated would become the greatest mistake the company had ever made. Before we begin this unforgettable journey, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel so our community can continue sharing stories that inspire hearts around the world. For nearly 11 years, Everett Collins had been the kind of employee whose work was noticed only when something impossible needed to be fixed. He never chased promotions, never argued during meetings, and never took credit for the countless crises he quietly solved before anyone else even knew they existed. Every morning began before sunrise as he prepared breakfast for his 8-year-old daughter, Hazel, braided her messy golden hair after several failed attempts that gradually became surprisingly good, packed her lunch with handwritten notes, and drove her to school before reaching the headquarters of Northbridge Dynamics. By the time most executives arrived with expensive coffee in hand, Everett had already reviewed overnight production reports and prevented problems that could have cost millions. His life had changed forever 5 years earlier when his wife passed away after a sudden illness. Grief had nearly swallowed him whole, but every evening Hazel waited by the apartment window with hopeful eyes that reminded him he still had someone depending on him. She became his reason to keep standing, even when every step felt unbearably heavy. Many co-workers admired Everett because he never allowed personal pain to become an excuse for treating others poorly. He remembered birthdays, stayed late to help struggling colleagues, fixed broken office equipment without being asked, and encouraged new employees who felt overwhelmed during their first weeks. While others competed for recognition, Everett quietly built trust. Everything changed when the company's founder retired and leadership passed to a young CEO named Celeste Rowan. Brilliant, ambitious, and fiercely determined to prove herself, Celeste believed success came through strict discipline and unquestioned authority. She admired efficiency but confused fear with respect. During her first months, she reorganized departments, replaced experienced managers with aggressive consultants, and demanded immediate obedience from everyone regardless of circumstance. At first, employees tolerated the changes because profits seemed to improve. Meetings became shorter. Deadlines became tighter. Smiles disappeared from the hallways. People stopped eating lunch together because everyone feared appearing unproductive. Everett noticed something else. Problems were no longer solved thoughtfully. They were simply hidden until they became emergencies. One bright Tuesday morning, an unexpected manufacturing issue threatened an important contract. The consultants insisted on shipping products despite knowing several components had not passed final quality testing. Everett respectfully explained that releasing them could damage customer trust for years. His recommendation was simple. Delay shipment for 1 day, repair the issue correctly, and protect the company's reputation. Celeste viewed his caution as open defiance. In front of department leaders and dozens of employees, she delivered an ultimatum that echoed through the silent conference room. She insisted the shipment would leave immediately and made it unmistakably clear that anyone unwilling to follow orders could leave the company. Many expected Everett to lower his head. Instead, he quietly organized the documents in front of him, thanked everyone for the opportunities they had shared over the years, returned his access card, and walked back to his office. The silence became almost painful. Some employees secretly admired his courage while others believed he had just destroyed his future. Everett packed only family photographs, a worn notebook filled with engineering sketches, and the tiny ceramic turtle Hazel had painted during 2nd grade. He left behind plaques, awards, and framed certificates because none of them mattered as much as the promise he had made to his daughter years earlier. He had promised that no paycheck would ever be worth sacrificing his integrity. When he stepped outside into the warm afternoon sunlight, he took a long breath. The uncertainty frightened him, but for the first time in months, he also felt strangely peaceful. That afternoon he arrived at Hazel's school earlier than usual. She ran toward him carrying a colorful drawing of the two of them standing beneath a bright rainbow. She immediately noticed he was home much sooner than expected. Everett smiled gently and suggested they celebrate the unexpected free afternoon with ice cream at their favorite neighborhood shop. Hazel laughed with innocent excitement, never realizing her father had just walked away from the career that supported their lives. As they sat together beneath clear blue skies, Everett silently wondered how he would pay next month's rent. Back at Northbridge Dynamics, confidence quickly turned into confusion. The rushed shipment reached the client before hidden defects became impossible to ignore. Complaints flooded customer service. Production halted. Several important contracts were suspended while investigators searched for the cause. The consultants blamed factory workers. Managers blamed suppliers. Nobody wanted responsibility. By late afternoon, someone reluctantly admitted Everett had warned everyone before leaving. Celeste refused to believe one employee could matter that much. Determined to prove the company could function without him, she assigned 3 senior specialists to repair the manufacturing system Everett had managed for years. They worked frantically. Nothing improved. Because Everett had never kept knowledge to himself, everyone possessed the technical manuals. What they lacked was his years of practical understanding, calm judgment, and ability to recognize tiny warning signs before they became disasters. Within days, delayed deliveries multiplied. Customers lost confidence. Morale collapsed. Meanwhile, Everett updated his resume and accepted small freelance repair projects. The income barely covered expenses, yet he refused to complain. Every afternoon after collecting Hazel from school, they visited public parks, libraries, and community events because those moments cost little but meant everything. One afternoon an elderly mechanic named Graham invited Everett to help restore antique machinery inside a struggling vocational workshop that trained unemployed adults. The building was old. The equipment was outdated. The budget was almost non-existent. Yet Everett saw something priceless. People eager to rebuild their lives. He volunteered several hours each day, teaching practical engineering skills with endless patience. Students who had almost given up on themselves slowly rediscovered confidence. One mother secured stable employment after learning industrial maintenance. A former factory worker started mentoring younger trainees. Hope spread quietly through the workshop. Hazel loved spending afternoons there, handing out bottled water, organizing tools, and cheering whenever someone completed a difficult project. She proudly told everyone her father could fix almost anything except burnt pancakes. Her laughter filled the dusty workshop with warmth. News about the remarkable training program began spreading through local businesses. Several manufacturers hired graduates directly because they demonstrated both technical ability and strong character. Ironically, some of those businesses became competitors to Northbridge Dynamics. Inside the struggling corporation, pressure mounted relentlessly. Shareholders demanded explanations. Employees feared layoffs. Even Celeste's closest advisors admitted the company's culture had become driven by fear rather than trust. One board member quietly investigated Everett's employment history. He discovered something astonishing. Nearly every major innovation credited to executive teams over the past decade had been quietly developed or perfected by Everett and shared generously with others. He had never demanded recognition. He simply believed success belonged to everyone. The realization left several directors deeply uncomfortable. For years they had praised flashy presentations while overlooking the humble man who quietly kept everything running. Celeste finally requested copies of Everett's personnel evaluations. She expected average reports. Instead, she found years of glowing comments from co-workers describing extraordinary patience, honesty, leadership, and selflessness. One handwritten recommendation from a retired executive caught her attention more than anything else. It described Everett as the rare kind of leader who earned loyalty without asking for it because people trusted his heart before they trusted his expertise. Celeste read those words repeatedly. For the first time since becoming CEO, she questioned her own leadership. A week later, during another bright afternoon, she drove alone to the vocational workshop after learning Everett volunteered there. She expected to find a frustrated former employee still angry about losing his position. Instead, she watched through an open doorway as Everett patiently guided nervous trainees through complicated repairs, encouraging every mistake as another opportunity to learn. Hazel sat nearby helping a little boy tighten loose bolts on a practice engine while laughing uncontrollably each time the wrench slipped. Nobody appeared bitter. Nobody complained. The workshop felt more hopeful than the corporate headquarters she managed. Celeste remained outside for several minutes, silently observing. She realized Everett had not simply changed workplaces. He had carried his values wherever he went. Eventually she introduced herself. Several trainees became tense, remembering headlines about Northbridge Dynamics. Everett simply greeted her politely. For the first time in years, Celeste spoke without authority. She admitted she had mistaken obedience for leadership and efficiency for wisdom. She confessed the company had suffered greatly because she ignored honest advice. Most painfully, she acknowledged that forcing people to choose between integrity and employment had revealed her own insecurity rather than strength. Everett listened carefully. He did not interrupt. He did not seek revenge. He simply asked whether she intended to rebuild the same culture that had created the problem or build something better. The question lingered in the afternoon air. Celeste had no immediate answer. Over the following weeks, she returned several times, not to persuade Everett immediately but to learn. She spoke with trainees. She observed teamwork. She noticed everyone was treated with equal respect regardless of experience. Slowly, she began implementing similar changes inside Northbridge Dynamics. Managers received leadership coaching. Anonymous employee feedback became mandatory. Departments started sharing knowledge instead of competing for recognition. Mistakes were analyzed for lessons instead of blame. Trust, although fragile, slowly returned. Several months later, Northbridge Dynamics invited Everett to visit, not as an employee being summoned but as a respected professional whose opinion genuinely mattered. He accepted after careful thought. Walking through the familiar entrance during a sunny morning, he noticed something remarkable. People were smiling again. Co-workers greeted one another naturally. Break rooms were filled with conversation instead of anxious silence. Even production schedules had become more realistic. During a company gathering, Celeste publicly accepted responsibility for the failures that had nearly destroyed the organization. She explained that leadership was not measured by how loudly someone gave orders but by how willingly people trusted them when challenges appeared. Then she surprised everyone. Instead of offering Everett his previous position, she invited him to help shape a completely new employee development program that would train future leaders in technical excellence, compassion, humility, and ethical decision-making. Everett smiled. He accepted under one condition. Every trainee, from interns to executives, would spend time mentoring someone else because knowledge became most valuable when shared. The audience rose in heartfelt applause. Hazel, sitting proudly in the front row after school with permission from her teacher, clapped harder than anyone else. She had watched her father lose everything people thought mattered. She had also watched him discover everything that truly did. Before we reach the end of this journey, leave a meaningful comment and tell us what lesson stayed with you the most. Would you have chosen integrity over security, or do you believe there is another path? Your thoughts may encourage someone facing a difficult decision today. Months later, Northbridge Dynamics became known not only for outstanding products but also for its remarkable workplace culture. Employee turnover dropped dramatically. Customers returned because they trusted the company's honesty. Graduates from the vocational workshop found meaningful careers, and many eventually became respected mentors themselves. Everett never measured success by titles again. Every afternoon he still picked Hazel up from school, listened to stories about her day, and reminded her that courage was not the absence of fear but the decision to remain truthful even when fear seemed overwhelming. Celeste often reflected on the afternoon when a quiet single father packed one small box instead of surrendering his principles. She had believed she was watching an employee walk away from opportunity. In reality, she had been watching integrity walk out the front door. Thankfully, she found the humility to follow it before it was too late. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Remember that respect cannot be demanded, trust cannot be forced, and the greatest victories often begin the moment someone chooses character over comfort. Even when the cost feels overwhelming, kindness, forgiveness, hope, and integrity have a way of changing lives far beyond what we can ever imagine.